Everybody's got a story. You just have to listen. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and this is Good Listen. And today it's a story about a rock star turned tech entrepreneur. His name is Ryan Starr, and in the mid-2000s, he had a bunch of solo hits, toured the world, sold a ton of records, but now he's helping musicians connect with fans with his new tech platform. We're going to find out how that whole transition happened and what it was like being a rock star turned CEO. Ryan, welcome to the show. How are you, my man?
Great. How's it going?
It's going really well. So, Ryan, I want to start by talking about our very first encounter when we first met many years ago during your pop star days. And I don't know if you remember this, but we were in the Bahamas. We had gone to Atlantis to do a show for a bunch of our listeners, and we wanted some musical entertainment there. And at the time, you were riding high in the charts, and you came down to the Bahamas. You performed for our guests, and we were both kind of physically active, and I think we just got to talking, and we're like, hey, you want to go for a run in the Bahamas? And you're like, yeah, man, cool. I got nothing better to do. So if do you remember this?
It's coming back to me right now. You're
Okay.
blowing my mind. Yeah, I remember that.
We had no idea where we were going, and we start running through the Bahamas. We were not running in the hotel, like we were literally in the Bahamas. And
What a
we
memory.
ended
Oh my
up
God.
in someone's backyard with wild dogs,
Yeah.
and we had to hop a fence because we were about to be eaten alive by
Oh,
these wild dogs, because we were just like a couple of white idiots running around the Bahamas, and we ended up in a guy's backyard where there were like attack dogs there.
this is a true story. Yes. Oh my God. And I remember thinking, why do I remember if one of us were to have gotten eaten, it would have been you? Why do I remember that? Did I leave you quickly? Like what happened? I feel like you were more in danger than I was for some reason.
Yeah, I think you were the first one to realize the danger, and I was just like, oh, okay, the dog must be on
We
chain or
were
something like
on
that.
rocks
Nope.
too. It wasn't like we were able to book. We were on these jagged rocks.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you couldn't just run to the fence. It was I watched the floor is lava with my kids. That's nothing. That's like playroom. That's nothing. This was don't slip. The dog's coming.
Oh yeah. No,
Where
it
are
was
we?
very dangerous.
And
And
we fence. We gotta hop that thing, but I gotta get there, dude. Maybe that's why I thought he's in real trouble. Maybe you were a few rocks closer to the water.
yeah, no, you identified those deadly dogs faster than I did, but luckily we survived that.
Unbelievable memory. And I remember, I remember being quite loopy too, because I was on tour with Train and we were in Vancouver the night
Oh,
before.
right, you flew in in the middle of the night. Yes.
Vancouver, not to Seattle, to the Bahamas. You know what I mean? And I did an overnight, and then to get on the morning show and play the thing or whatever we did, and then did the entertainment, ran with you, and then flew back to Vancouver, where I picked up the tour again, and we went to the next city. Oh my God. When I do remember this story because the the touring life and people saying, oh, the glamour and all the things you ever heard. I often think of that stretch. There was that was a part of a very busy week. You mentioned the song was doing well too. At the time, it was probably my song "Breathe" because it was
Oh,
the
we,
air that was
yes.
breathing you. Yeah, and I just remember that one being in all the years of touring. I remember that particular time that you're describing was uh like exponentially more intense and trying physically, mentally, emotionally, all that stuff. So what a memory, man. I really haven't thought about that since, and that's why we're so connected, man.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
listen. That was one of those things where, I often joke that my life in radio was like a haze, but there are certain moments, and I think when you're about to be eaten by a dog, that kind of sticks into your medulla oblongata, whatever part of your brain holds that stuff. So let's go back to those days when you were, I mean, at that point in your life, you mentioned you had that hit song "Breathe," and I think that was like your second or third hit at the time, but you. You at that was the moment in your life, Ryan, where if I were you, I'd be like, "Fuck, I made it. I'm a star. Like I'm traveling with these huge acts. I'm going all over the world playing." What was it like outside of the hecticness of the travel? And back then, you didn't really have. I mean, I know you had MySpace, but you didn't have social media where you could interact with fans. So the only way you could was by touring. Were when that was happening in your life and you'd sort of like built up a catalog of songs, you had a fan base, was that the moment you're like, "Shit, this is what I've been working for my entire life?"
For sure, I think there's like an element of doing what I set out to do, and I was very aware it was another level closer to the dream. Because years earlier, I was in a rock band called Stage, like my high school group and college group, and Madonna signed us to a record like we had to go, but that was like right. The timing of that one was right when the music industry was decimated by Napster and the digital revolution, right? And like, I, so I felt like I passed that level. That first level was like, get a deal, like, oh my God, make a record with real people and like go on tour. And we did that. But something felt like it fell out and it didn't go all the way. It was like, yeah. Around the time you're mentioning, it definitely did feel like a step up to, "Oh, this was what I was after." Like, it was more. It wasn't just getting a deal or being or making something more professional, but now there is all these things around it, the fans, the life, um, but I think along the way, and um, probably like a lot of people out there, there's like never this it feels like I'm always still working towards some sort of dream, um, that I don't know if you ever go like, "This is it," and, maybe these days, I try to do that more. I don't know, like you said, just take a moment. Maybe it's being in New York, or maybe it's just like it never stops, right? And then you don't want to be that person. Yet you see enough videos that are interviewing people at the end of their lives saying like, "I never realized what I had." So I take that to heart. Like I take a beat now because hearing you frame it that way. I'm like, oh, I was living the dream, but there's always that next level. I think for anybody. But making music, I think the thing I most dreamt about and what felt greatest was as many people listening to your music as possible, but also making that impact and like that change, that the people part that you know so well, meeting people, having great experiences, and knowing that you were a positive change in someone's life that like you didn't even know personally, but like you made something that put a plus out there in the world has stuck with me ever since I started signing the autographs. Like plus in a plus minus world. Like that's how I identified out there. And I think I was able to do that at a large scale when I was playing music. And now I get to do it in a large scale, making technology that goes to people. Right. So like I think that's the dream, like, being a plus in a plus minus world. So yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. And we're gonna get into your day job now, but
Or
before
yeah.
we do, I've been to a couple of your shows, and you always did great shows. People love seeing you live, and I remember, and you talked about the connection. There were multiple times when I was around you that people would come up to you who loved your music that would have like your lyrics like tattooed on their body, or like the symbols that you were known for at the time. What does that feel like? Because I mean, I feel someone watch this be like, "Oh, Ryan Starr, he had a nice little music career." I mean, he wasn't Taylor Swift, but who gives a shit? Not everyone could be Taylor Swift. You had an incredible fan base of people so devoted that they ink their body with your words. What did that mean?
Uh, there's 3 levels of it. One was, um, the if I was on the earliest side of that, they'd sometimes come to me at like a merch booth experience and have me sign something on their arm, and I would know that they're gonna go print that, they're gonna go get a tattoo artist to copy it. That, when you bring this up, it makes me think of that because there was so much fear and anxiety around, "I better get this right. This is gonna be as permanent as you just described." Um, but aside from those, edge cases, I would, I'd say it was always, I don't have a tattoo on my body, so I couldn't relate, but I know that's a big deal, for people, and it always felt like, uh, it was very clear the impact I made on them, and it made me wanna be better for them, made me wanna keep rocking and be good, like, that was how I identified what we would call today, a super fan. Like, that was pretty much it. Like, you didn't need a pass or, a amount of followers or a freaking check mark next to your name. You right there. You're a super fan. Let's go. And so it was a good identifier for me to, like, really be like, when I say I'm in the studio doing it for the fans or making music for people that really care, I was able to visually see those are the people that really care. Not to say others weren't, but that was a definite signal. And then it hit me most when I'd go overseas and see, people that don't even speak English with my lyrics, written out. And that was like, that usually really hit me in another way. Like, wow, this is out there.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing you gotta say about music. It's like just the way you can connect with people. And you mentioned the fact that they don't even know a lick of English, and yet somehow your lyrics. Have you ever thought about like the chemistry that makes that happen? Like, what is the what is the alchemy that's happening here? That music, like I always love when I speak to like musicians. I remember I had like one of the guys from Leonard Skinner on a couple years ago, and he talked about how I think he was playing in like Sweden, and everyone knew Sweet Home Alabama, which to us is it's the Americana personified in the song, and that you see Swedish people singing it. So, have you ever thought about like how music connects to people and how crazy it is that it has this pull and this magic?
Uh, no, I know what it does for me, for the artists I like, and I guess it's, I mean, I I I know it, like, changes your chemistry, like, and now we're, like, getting real smart, like, this human race of ours is, like, really getting data driven, right? And, like, I knew you were, like, we're proving a lot of things that we all felt for a long time, and it's kind of reassuring. It's like, yes, this, sad song will make you feel something and make you feel happier sometimes. Like um, this song will pump me up and make me want to fly and kick it. Like I drive my kid to Little League now. We put this Jimmy Eat World song on, and off Bleed American, and it's like a pump up song for both of us. And so the music has a way, as so many new things come out and evolve, and we get so hyper in technology, it's like unbelievable that this thing is still such a part of the Earth's DNA and like our spiritual DNA. This thing called music, and you learn obviously that it's like it truly is, as cliche as it sounds, this ultimate connector, right? It can create peace. It can create it can create a lot of things, and it can bond people, beyond language, and it's quite beautiful. So I only know what everybody else knows. I don't have any other insight from being an artist that someone who's moved by music today right now would have.
That's awesome. No, it's cool. It's funny because I've been on this. Obviously, I make a living podcasting and producing podcasts, consulting people, and there's this narrative that there's too many podcasts, and I always push back with like, are there too many songs? Are there too many movies? Are there too many TV shows? Why
Yes.
would you want to stop someone from creating something? Like, yes, not every podcast is going to be Joe Rogan or Call Me Daddy. It's going to be something someone like everyone has a voice. And if some people want their voice to be heard, whether it's through music, whether it's through film, or whether it's through a podcast. So that's why I always push back on that. And maybe I'm extra sensitive to it because I do it. But also, like, I don't want to have someone out there be like, oh, yeah, maybe there is too many podcasts. Because the same thing could be said about anything that we make, right?
Yeah, no, that's what a beautiful comparison. I actually haven't thought of it like that. I think you're spot on. I'm pretty, pretty blown away by that simple idea, and I think you're right. I think there's another level of like, the other side of making something though, because you say you want your verse to be heard, so it could like people can identify, they could place that in a place that sounds, oh, I want to be famous or I want people to like me, and there is something else though, right? So like making music, there is a feeling like nothing better. I moved to I moved to the suburbs in pandemic, so I'm not in a little tiny studio in New York City now, and I have a bigger room to have my studio, and I'm staring at something my parents dropped off. Like, oh, you have a bigger house now. Like, here's all your stuff from we've been holding for 20 years, and I'm staring at my 4-track recorder I started playing on when I was a teenager. This is a set recorder right up there, and it's like an artifact to me, but it really does remind me of like the pure, simple joy and what it felt like when nobody was listening. I was just making it. Um, of course, there were these dreams, and I was getting better at a craft. But I loved, and I kind of miss that feeling of making something and hearing it back, and that feeling of, I don't know, self accomplishment. You're hearing it back. It's like, and it's funny because you don't listen to it every day after that. It's that first experience when you're done and you do it and you hear it back. There's nothing like that feeling. I haven't actually really been able to find that anywhere else in life. And I've dabbled in other things, and you talk about all these dopamine hits now. It's always top of conversation as people are, have like this epidemic of attention and scrolling, and I've probably been rewired a bit too, and as I look at that, I just remember that's that hit, that's that feeling of working so hard at something and then hearing it back. So when you say, everyone has a voice, do you think that they have a voice because, like, they wanna make something, or because they wanna get famous, or, like, what's that feeling when you're doing this
Yeah.
right now? Because
I
this
think
is
there's
your art.
all different levels of that, Ryan, you're right. I think there's some people who just wanna like, it's almost like when you ask a kid, "What do you wanna be when you grow up?" I wanna be famous."
Mm,
And for me, Ryan, I grew up as, like I was always, like, the class clown. I was always the one who put on shows for my family. I would do magic tricks that were terrible because I didn't have the initiative or the wherewithal to, like, practice all that. But there was something about the feeling of me doing something and the reaction. Like, that was my that was my drug, like, doing something that would elicit a reaction. So, for me, as you know, with podcasting and radio, it's very personal, like, it's very a one-on-one thing. So, the way I always look at it from what I do today and what I used to do in my old radio days was, like, how can I connect to another person? Whether it's, like, a co-host, somebody in the room, or when I'm doing these conversations for YouTube and podcasts, like maybe a couple of people listen to it and maybe they'll get something out of it. But also, I feel like what I'm doing makes the other person I'm speaking to feel better. Like my takeaway when I'm doing these kind of things, Ryan, and I know I've known you for a long time. At the What I want, like, and I know this is kind of selfish. What I want at the end of this is like you to feel at the end of this, be like, hey, that was fun. Like, just like I'm a very simple person, Ryan. So, like, if I could, what this us communicating back and forth by the end of it, you're like, yeah, it was fun chat, and then then I'm hoping there's like that sort of butterfly ripple effect that someone who watches or listens be like, hey, that was fun. It seemed like those two people were good because to me, my superpower has always been like enthusiasm for just having enthusiasm for making stuff. So
yeah,
whether it was doing radio, doing podcasts, I made a short film, I wrote a book. Like my enthusiasm for doing it is what gets me off. Like that's my thing. Like and I never realized that till later in life because I'll have meetings with people and they'll be like, "Hey, you're very enthusiastic," and I never realized that. It was just it was in my DNA. They were like, "Oh, I like." And my favorite thing is like now in my day job, I work with a lot of like entrepreneurs and business people, and at the end of a meeting, they'll be like, "Hey, I like your energy," and I never know. I never Ryan. I try to be a proponent of self awareness, but I was never self aware enough to know that like, my energy level, my enthusiasm level is different from other people. But that's when it comes to me like hearing your voice. For me, it's like not necessarily hearing me, but like hearing what maybe there's a takeaway you can learn from like listening to me or watching this or listening to one of your stories.
yeah.
That's my drug.
No, I love that. I love this ripple effect. I love that you're like throwing this rock in the pond and everything's reacting from there. I love that. I love that. I think that's like a really good argument for more people making stuff for sure.
And when it comes to making music, like here's the one thing. So I was never musically inclined. When I was a kid, I saw the movie La Bamba. You remember the Richie Valens story starring Lou Diamond Phillips?
Amazing.
You're old enough to remember that. Some kids may not.
Oh yeah.
But I remember watching that, and
That was a hit song too, right? Wasn't it
oh
like the
yeah,
first
ba da
no,
ba da
it
la
I
bamba.
think it was the first maybe I'm wrong. I thought it was like, maybe the first non-English number 1.
It,
I
it,
could
it's possible. It was a huge hit. It was Los. Who was the band that covered it? It was Los. Oh, because remember they did they
Lobos?
knew Los
Lobos?
Lobos. Yes, thank you. Good pull. So Los Lobos did it, and that began and that and come on, let's go. So I was very impressionable as a kid, Ryan. So whenever I watched a movie, I would want to do in real life. So I saw The Karate Kid when it was first in theaters. Yes, I'm that old. And I
I
saw
should point out Ralph Macchio, grew up, less than a mile from where I live. I grew up, Yeah, he was in my school
Oh,
district. There's a fun little Wikipedia of people, and I think I partly why I moved here, I was like, "I'm in the Wikipedia, I gotta move there, like, my kids gotta know that." But yeah, Ralph Macchio grew up, down the street from me
well,
years ago,
so
obviously.
he was very impressionable to me as the Karate Kid because I think in the movie he played a kid from Jersey who moves to California with his
Right.
divorced mom. So that was a huge connection. I'm like, oh, cool. Kid from Jersey felt like an outsider. I always felt like an outsider. Let's try karate. Didn't stick. I lasted maybe a few months. Then I saw the movie La Bamba, and I was like, I want to play guitar. Little did I know, Ryan, that that bastard Lou Diamond Phillips didn't play a lick of guitar in the movie, or he sang, he lip synced all the way. I was too young to realize that. So I go take guitar lessons, and I'll never forget this. It was called Sweetest Sounds in Lyndhurst, New Jersey. And this was around like late 80s. My music teacher was like in a hair band. So this guy looked like Bon Jovi, like the permed out hair,
Know it.
denim, the
Tight pants and black leather
yes,
vinyl
all
yeah,
of that.
yeah.
So I took guitar lessons for like a week or two, and I was like, yeah, I can't do this. This too freaking hard. So here's the thing. I get how you make a movie, you write a script, you shoot it. I get how you write a book, you put words together. And this could just be me, I'll never understand that math that's required to write a song. Like the idea of melody and lyrics and all these layers. When did you understand how it all works? Because you obviously ended up doing it at a high level, but at what point in your life did you realize how all of that fit together? And then outside, and then you go deeper into like genres and styles, but like the basics of music. When did you get it?
Hmm. Well, I got it, probably around the time where I fell in love with, some I fell in love with music in a way that a teenager would, like, it's not your parents' music anymore, now you're kinda moved, like, it moved kind of feeling, uh, and then wanting to emulate it like clearly chose the wrong person to emulate. Maybe you'd be, if it was Nirvana and only had to learn 4 chords, you might have been doing it right now, right? You chose a hard piece. Um, so I think emulating and like feeling that feeling and wanting to entertain people, all that stuff, like you said, but deeper, I think there's like a vibration. It's like because you're talking about science and math and all that. I understand why you're saying that, but I think there's different levels. Like people approach it differently. Like some really are like clinical about arguably probably the biggest songwriters of our times are super clinical about it sometimes. Um but I didn't relate as much to that to the math as much as the vibration and the feeling and the intent. And I not out of being lazy because I would work really hard and I was in my earlier days really a terror to be around because I would just work day and night to get this done and to get the sound in my head out. Um, and having to learn how to do that was this whole thing. But like there's and I'm sure it's gonna probably be talked about with this new movie, the Bob Dylan movie coming out soon, and like there's like probably a different few artists, and I was definitely lucky enough where for me it always felt like it was channeling. Like my best stuff was just was channeling. I'd get in that right space, and I would do it, and it would be easy and beautiful, and it felt really good, and it all came out the right way. Um, Whenever I would get clever or clinical or math and all the things I do know and all the things that felt like the right thing or to do it the right way. Um, and I put a lot of things out like that. It never resonated with me and it never went as big. Um, Meaning it didn't resonate with others, even though on paper it sounded like it would have. It never resonated with others either, the same way the things that just came out easy and quick did. And so I attribute that more to like just a vibe, you know, and riding that wave. Uh, and I think that might have started, yeah, early, just like, teenage years, 13, 13, 14, just like, doing it then. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because the one thing that I never got with the music thing is like there's keys and pitches, and I think there's like a stat like where like only 10% of the population is tone deaf. I think I'm in that. Like I
Yeah.
have no idea
Okay.
because
Yeah.
you used to you knew my old co-host Todd Pettengill, and he was a super talented musician, and we
Okay.
were like parody songs
Right.
together,
Yeah.
and he knew music in and out, and
Yeah.
I was good enough. I was well, not good enough. I could figure out a funny line, and I would be like, "Hey, here's this line idea," and it's like, "Yeah, but that's too many notes," and I'm like, "Well, do you just make it work? I don't know how to," and or then I'd be singing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"That's the wrong key." Like, I don't know any of that stuff. Like, how did you
Yeah,
learn about
fair.
like that proper stuff?
Yeah, I hear you there. Yeah, I guess that's like I mean, yeah, it could be learned. There's like there are like these things that make sense and rules and some they come out naturally, some really work hard in them. There's like videos now every day. You can see like, there's some like even Taylor Swift you mentioned videos of like her back and forth with her collaborators and how it's coming out. And that's like real. That's how it happens. And you just know when it sounds right. I think because you study it so much and then you're talented at it at the same time. Because what I'm neglecting, I guess, in your real question was I'm forgetting that yes, not everyone can keep a tone or understand what I'm even saying. It's like so that and I don't know how to teach it. So like I think, they say like, they, God sprinkles talent. Like it's like so everyone's gonna get something, by the way. Like I think everyone's gonna get something, but yeah, there's definitely this musical thing that happens, and some people get it. And I'm starting with that as the starting point that we have this. And then yeah, then there's definitely like you know, formulas and pop sensibilities. It's funny because I hear it in my 6-year-old daughter who's like rainbows and unicorns and magic. Like you go into her world, you're gonna be on such a fun trip. And I hear her starting to sing now, and I hear her sensibility. I hear she's doing the right things, and she's feeling it, and she doesn't know anything more. She doesn't know like I'm gonna make it or I want this or I want these followers. Like she doesn't know any. She's just vibing. Like she's just catching it, and it's coming out, and her brain is probably making those connections right now. That one day in a writing session, she'll know the answer, right? Because her brain is mixing the yellow and the blue and learning what color that makes. What color does that make, Joe?
Green.
Yeah, there you go. So, so she's,
Please
that's
ask
happening.
questions on this. This is all.
So she's making, I think, and that's what we're talking about, right? Like all the patterns, all the experience of like just being able to. I don't know, and now I understand your question, right? Because I have zero idea how someone can look at something and or think of something and make a beautiful picture. Like I don't have that. I could do stick figures. I invented this thing in the shower. Now I do this thing where if you put like your butt cheeks on the humid, the steamed up sauce, they look like these big eyes, and then you make like an eyebrow and a mouth, and I call them buddies. Um, and
And you're still married.
it's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool. So like that's my extent of artwork. I make these buddies, and I take a picture of each one. They're all unique characters, right?
Oh,
And but that's it. Like so, when I see someone making art, like my sister, who's is a beautiful goldsmith and fine artist, man, I'm like, how do they what? Like how what? Right. So I understand that, and music's probably one of those things for sure. Yeah. And you have to too, right? Your ability to bring joy and be I'm sure some people are like, how are you happy all the time? Like, how do you do that?
I think we're sometimes our own toughest critic, or sometimes, again, like I mentioned, like we lack self awareness in the fact that we're good at shit. And there are times, though, I will say, Ryan, and my wife laughs at me about this because sometimes I'll be because luckily with technology, we don't have to have that giant 8 track anymore. So you could take your computer anywhere. So there'll be sometimes I'll be in the kitchen and I'll come up with a hard edit, and at the end of it, I'll be like, damn, you're good. Like there are a couple moments
Yeah.
in my life where I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck, man, I
Make
nailed
it land. Yeah, you connect it, that feeling of connecting it. It's so cool. Yeah. I love that. And I love that you could be a fan of your own stuff like that. That you have to be. Like if yeah, you have to be, at least in that one moment, and then you move to the next one. That's the feeling. That's the
yeah, you
dope.
can't live in that. You can't live. But enjoy it. Like I'm always a big fan of celebrating the small wins. I think we're all too obsessed with you got to be a billionaire, you got to have X number of followers. Like celebrate those small wins because
Yeah.
what happens is once you get to that big point, you'll be like, oh, all right. That's cool. That was excellent. We met Taylor Swift a couple times here today, and I want to ask you because as we mentioned, you've had levels of fame where people are literally tattooing your words on them, or you're not, but someone else is. But like, have you ever thought about like that level of fame? And I know you've been around a lot of famous people in the music industry. Can you, as someone who had a pretty good run at it, like try to understand that level of just the fact that everyone on the planet knows who this person is whenever she walks into a room or something?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
how have you ever thought about that connection with people?
yeah, I've thought about it. I've touched it in some examples. Uh, and yeah, I've met people, literally, Taylor Swift sang my own song to me, a fan of a song you guys played called "Stay a While." And, I remember her coming up to me at a party and, like, telling me, like, she loved this part of a song. She sang it in front of everybody. I was like, "Oh, nice. She likes my tune." It's like a memory I get to, like, tell people now. It's pretty cool. Um, I I was on, like, a TV show back when, like, those, voice kinda talent shows started coming out. It was, like, a time when radio wasn't breaking new music. Music business was in a free fall. Growing the old school way wasn't really connecting, as much. So, like, going on a TV thing to get in front of as many people as you can seemed like a viable option, which seems so normalized now to be, like, on a show or something, but it was like a big jump to be like, okay, indie New York guy going to be on a, you know, a talent reality type show. It was very hard to swallow for me personally, but the end result was going to be getting my music in front of millions of people. So I did it. Um, and it was a successful show called Rockstar Supernova. It was like a kind of a hit show, and I remember personally experiencing things that didn't feel so real, right? I'd be walking down the street like on Sunset, and like cars would stop, like traffic would stop, and people would run out and like want to, pictures or something. Um, and so I had this like fantasy camp, version of what some of these people live with all the time. I remember landing in, um, Singapore and Malaysia, and like turning on the radio to only hear like they're Ryan Starr's landed here in Malaysia. He is on the way to the hotel, and like paparazzi chasing my car. Like I'm like, this is what is it? Right? This is crazy. My point to all that is, and there's people that I've heard speak like more eloquently about this. There's I can't tell if it's healthy, right? Like, I don't know if I know it's a dream of everybody's. I know you've met the biggest stars on the planet and talked to them. There is a sacrifice, there's no doubt, and I just remember, and I'm a really grounded kid, good family, like, I have good anchor I have good anchors, like, and my time out there, particularly, like, in LA, and, like, I very much feel like even I could feel myself and, like, my soul, like, I could even feel me not being the me that I knew I am, and starting to because that warps like, that's a drug that at that point, you're not choosing to get to see it's just happening. People are just treating you that way over and over and over again, and the yes people and all these things, and, I'm not saying anything that you haven't been able to observe with our biggest stars of the last 10 years. I mean, all of them, most of them. Bless Taylor for being, having it together, these seemingly, but like a lot of these people like, are not living in the same reality. It's not even there. It's not that they're doing it. Other people are doing it to them. And that's a weird drug. That's a weird reality to be in. And they're not experiencing the same reality everybody else is experiencing. I've been on both sides. I've tasted that one I'm just telling you about. And
Yes.
I'm telling you, it's not the same. And on top of that, it brings out a darkness, I think, that's just not um natural. And you know, I think the people that make it through clear-headed and good intact people are like should be celebrated because that's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do, and it's easy for people that haven't experienced that to judge it and to say, "Oh, they're doing this," or "They should be so happy and lucky." It's like there is a something that trigger that's not normal in your brain that is hard to handle. It's like saying, like, you're gonna give your kid TikTok at 5 years old. Like, we know that's not gonna be good for their brain. Like, you just know it. So imagine like that is happening at some crazy level of they just are not living on this planet. And as centered as they are, they have a very different reality when they walk out the door and experience life. And it hijacks, I think it could really hijack your soul. And sometimes yeah, it might be lucky or not to have that level. And I remember one thing I do remember. Who's the girl from Good Will Hunting? Do you remember?
Minnie Driver?
Yes. She she said something you could probably find on YouTube or something about fame. And I think she's kind of like disappeared quite a bit. She was an incredible actress.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember hearing her say what she says about fame. And I thought in my head, that's it. That's articulating that thing that I felt. Um, Anyway, I moved back to New York. I was like, I need to get back to my core, my family, and start creating my own family. Like I had a conscious decision to take that fork and not live that life out there. And she really, really encapsulates it in a beautiful way. You should check it out.
Okay. All right. So I want to tie this into the previous part of our conversation, then creativity and fame. And I've always felt, and I remember I talked to what's his name, Kevin Griffin from Better Than Ezra. I'm sure you probably crossed
Okay.
paths
I
many
wrote a
times.
song with him for an artist called My Oh My.
So I was talking to Kevin about this, and he gave me a really good answer. He's a really smart dude, as you know. But so again, connecting creativity with fame, I always felt that there's a level of contentment that once an artist reach a level of comfort, it's hard for them to connect with audiences. And the person I always bring this up is Paul McCartney. He will probably go down as, if not one, two greatest songwriters in the history of this planet. But there came a time where after a while, his songs didn't connect with a greater audience. And so I wonder, how do these like Taylor's just like the fact that she's able to be this creative at this point in her career where she's so famous is remarkable because not many people can sustain it. I mean, we saw you mentioned Madonna earlier. There came a time where her music just didn't connect with the masses. She's still wildly popular, sells out stadiums, so she's doing a lot better than I am. So I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that there's a level where when you cross that road of fame and then and creativity, they butt heads and you're unable to connect. Now, the way Kevin responds to the answer, again, smarter than I am, very eloquent. He basically said maybe it's not the artist, but the person, the consumer of that music. Maybe it's maybe it's you've changed and you can't connect with the music, which does make sense. But if you look at the sort of how the sort of analog to it is like, well, yeah, but what the other person's doing something different too because they've changed as well. I've changed, but so have they. So how do you think some of these people are able to maintain that amazing like combination of fame and creativity? Because as you see, it does not last long for a lot of these people. That's why a lot of them are burnt out by the time they reach 30 because they've had so much fame at such an early part of their life and created so much, and all of a sudden, "Ooh, I'm out."
Yeah. Uh, Yeah, I don't know if I agree with Kevin on that one. He's probably right in some cases for sure, especially the trendy stuff. But like the people that are master, look, use Taylor as an example, a great example. She's like a master at her craft. She studies it. She loves it clearly. I look at her and she's like continuing to be cutting edge. So it's like, I don't know. Look at Quentin Tarantino. Like look at some of these filmmakers that they 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 make it in the multi-decade. They can still relate to people. And I think if they everyone's gonna have a miss or whatnot. But in her case, and I'm sure everyone's uniquely separate, but in her case, I really think she's done quite a job of evolving. Like she understands pop culture. Let's use an example. She was in country, great. And then she started finding the pop world and collaborating with those people that were kind of cutting edge and coming up. And then, when really cool indie Brooklyn kids were listening to the National, she was also listening, getting into National and Bon Iver too. And she's like, well, that's like where I want to take this. And so she's such a fan. So she's also a fan. And then she's like, but she's got the ability to be like, I'm such a fan. I'm going to work with that. I wanted to work with Blair too, but like, and she's like, let's get them in the studio. Now they're working together. And then and now that's branching off because now those guys are even doing Olivia Rodrigo, not Olivia Rodrigo, Gracie Abrams, and like now you're seeing how like almost like that Quincy Jones thing's happening. Like the culture is evolving around very, she's that big, then now she's impacting culture and she's rippling out to the other artists. So like as long as she still stays in that speedboat and leads, now, maybe she's like, oh shit, this McGee guy is good. I don't know if she's calling him, but like maybe like she's continuing to be such a fan of the not the underground, but the hip, the cool, like the what's next, right? And
Yeah.
like and then she's bringing them on the boat, and then they're rippling out and continuing to chase what she's doing, and then some of those people make it and some of those people don't. But I think whoever's leading the wake is the one that, there's gonna be all those bands around it, right? And the artists around it, and the ones that are good enough will get on and maybe lead in their own way. But I think she's good at that, and
Yeah.
that's where keeps winning, right? Um,
That's a
and
great point. That's such a like, I never heard it that way, and I think that's such a great because I've always heard people say that the great, like, creators of stuff are in a way psychic. Like, because if you think about it, like, when a movie is actually out in theaters, it's been worked on for probably 3 to 5 years, if not longer. So whoever's making that thing has to know, "Oh, shit, that thing I'm making now, no one's gonna see it in 5 years. Is it going to be relevant?" So and what you're saying is such a great way of encapsulating that, of like, Taylor knows that, like, "Sure, my shit is really good right now, but I gotta look forward to what's gonna be hot next." And I think that's such a brilliant way and I think that's something that to take away anyone who makes something can be inspired by, like, don't look back. Don't look at the present, but look, see what could resonate down the line, and that's how you can have a long lasting career. That's brilliant.
And she's such a fan. I mean, that's the thing too. So she is the consumer, right? So she's a fan changing and learning. And look, that's why she came up to me and knew the lyrics and the melody to my song and picked it out. Like she's studying, like she knows what's going on out there. So that's that. And then, but then a Bob Dylan is like, I don't know what happened. I channeled that and it came out and I can't write that way anymore. That's what he says. Right. So that's what I was getting at before. And so everyone's different and, like, but yeah, I think there's definitely something to that. But I think being a fan and actually an artist in the end, I think there's always this idea that, oh, they're like a pop thing or they're a sellout or and you think about these people like I'm a real artist, and then when you meet them, you're like, oh no, they're these people are real. They are the artists. Like you'll meet the ones that are posing and trying to get in, and it doesn't feel the same as the real ones. And not to say they're all going to make it, but in the end, you gotta be real, and you gotta love it and mean it, and kind of like do it even if no one was paying attention. And that's the difference between some of these come and goes versus like I'm just going to do it. And a lot of respect to that because it ain't as pretty as it seems. You got to really commit to it and live that life.
That's sweet. Let's try to like tie in things to how your career has progressed to now. But the one thing I want to say is that we've had an opportunity to hang out a few times. I never saw you happier than when you're performing on stage. Like I feel, and again, I'm psychoanalyzing here for free. Yeah, you don't have to. Sorry. But there was something about you being on stage, playing the music that we've talked about, that you've put your blood, sweat, and tears in, perfecting, making it into your own, and then playing it live in front of people where you could actually like feel their breath and you can like you touch their sweat. Um, what does it mean when you're not doing it? After those years of like grinding on the road and then one day you're not playing in front of a few thousand people, you don't have that like that visceral reaction, that stuff we were talking about, that alchemy that you get with music. What is it like when it's not in your life? And I bring this up because I remember years ago I saw Billy Joel do an interview on 60 Minutes where he talked about how he would be playing to 20,000 people 1 minute and 5 minutes later be alone in his hotel. And like what a brain fuck that is. Like 1 second you're being just loved on by many, many people. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's gone. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm by myself. How do you handle that psychologically?
I create like I make I like you said before, you make stuff, and I think make things. So like I'm not the way I evolved from I didn't wake up one day and say, "I'm not gonna go play in front of thousands of people," yeah, and for what it's worth, I would always love taking it back to, like, Rockwood and playing in front of 20. Like, I'll always no matter what, I'd be at one of your shows. I remember Stevie Van Zandt hops on with me at the PLJ show and brought him out, we're rocking. I mean, it was big stuff, and I remember Billy Joel coming to see me play actually, and coming to my show and meeting me backstage, and that as a Long Island kid, this was like, "That's it, did it," you know? Um, and that feeling every night, nothing's better, and this is the thing they talk about with artists where, like, they don't really people don't realize you don't, like, get addicted to drugs and substances on the road is you're taking care of yourself, you're I mean, I'm generalizing, of course, but, if you're a singer and you gotta keep in shape like an athlete, you gotta take it serious, a lot of people are relying on you, it's a business out there, and you're working every night, um, but that feeling, that dopamine, that incredible rush of all the people. I mean, can you imagine what it feels like being on the center of a stage? Think about those Taylor Swift shows, like, where literally physically the earth is shaking, right? And the economy shake like, and then it's her, right? And, like, imagine what, acupuncture, acupressure, Reiki, whatever. I'm not even like that guy, but I'm saying there's stuff happening. There is stuff happening. We know it, and we just don't know what that is yet, but, like, it's happening. And can you imagine? Yeah, now she's in the hotel room alone. Like, and it's cool because the next day it'll happen again. Point is, a lot of those people, like, they get hooked when they get home because life is, like, really boring, compared to that rush happening. It's like getting off of alcohol or something, like, you're gonna have that real decline the next few weeks, and so there is this difference, and I remember having to, like, meet my wife, um, on the road, like, we would meet up. I wouldn't go home, um, after a tour, I'd meet her somewhere different, or she'd come to the last show and we'd hang out, like, together, because if I came home, like, cold turkey like that, I would misunderstand that life's kinda boring and, like, I'm not getting that feeling anymore, and I would associate, "Wait, am I bored here with her?" Like, so I was like, I had to kind of wean off the tour. So it's a really good question, and a funny thing happened when I stopped touring. It was really like pandemic happened, so it was kind of a weird kind of rip the Band-Aid off experience, and then I was building this company, so, like, by the time everything opened up again, I didn't really hop back on the road, and I also was starting to build a family and make a family, so, like, in my head, the boxes of making stuff and trying to change the world were being changed. Like, I was making this record called Having Kids. That's holy shit, that's crazy, and that's a project, right? And so I'm making that thing and then this other thing called Stationhead that I'm building, and now I don't have a band of 4 people or touring with 8 people on the road. And now I have, 16 people on Stationhead building this team and building this thing, and what are we doing? We're building tech around music and trying to, make affect people and change people's lives for the better, just like I was playing acoustic guitar in my bed dreaming of doing. Like, it's just at a different scale and a different medium. And, so I do feel like I'm making stuff and I'm, like, still making things. All that being said, though, I did, uh, my friend Stevie, who we were just talking about, we had dinner the other night, and he kinda looked at me and was like, "Yo, what are you doing? Like, same thing you just said, like, I've seen you play. Like, you have to go play. I don't know whatever narrative you're saying, like why you're not and the bullshit I just gave you." But he's like, "You have to go play." And you're hitting me at a time where I don't I have to start playing too. Like, yeah, there's no excuses there. So I don't really have an answer to your question except, maybe I have to start playing. I don't answer. I think maybe that is my happiness and I gotta get out there again.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned Stationhead. So let's wrap things up, plugging it. And so I want to bust your balls first because now all of a sudden, dude, you're a suit. You're a CEO.
Hey,
You're the man now. So you were always rebelling against the man, and now you're the man. So what's it like being a CEO of a company? Like you said, a couple dozen employees. You're trying, like you said, you're trying to impact the music industry. So let's start with what is Stationhead?
uh, Stationhead is like it's a the digital venue. It's like where all the kids come and listen together on release week. They listen together, they hang out, they celebrate the artist, they support the artist, and they make so much noise mobilizing as a fan, as a fandom, globally, that the artist will also join them and hang out at their station head and listen to the music, talk about the music, and just be a community like that. So we've created this live kind of digital venue where fandoms globally hang out together and listen to music together with often with the artists themselves. In the last few weeks, we've had like Billie Eilish, Olivia Rodrigo, Sabrina Carpenter, Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, Rose. The list is. I say this with like so much awe because we would have for any of those names when we started the company, I would have given half the company. Yeah, it's like, oh my god, we would have done anything to get these people. But when we started building for fans and we started building for this idea that they've been left in the cold, like a fan today, digitally, it's a lonely experience, right? You still go to the concerts. We all seen Swifties on TV, but we also saw Swifties crying in front of their computer screen when the loading thing was broken on Ticketmaster. Like we saw this, like that's what it is. Like that's how you built for fans. I'm not saying we should go back and sit in the rain online at the video store to get Taylor Swift tickets like how we used to do it, but it just proves that nobody has purpose built technology for the super fan and the artist in mind, right? They figured out ways to communicate on Twitter and listen alone on Spotify and say I'm listening or you listening. But Stationhead's approach was, hey, let's think of that. Let's think of the fan first and that experience and usher it in. And you compare it to video games, right? When me and you were younger, like you buy a game, you would play it till your fingers bled, and then 2 years later the next game would come out, you play that one, and that was the flow. Fast forward a few decades, right? We got, you know, um, in-app purchases, we got Discord communities, we got Twitch live stream events, we got Fortnite skins where kids care more about their digital shoes than their actual shoes, and you got Roblox, all the and that's like this whole new world that was created. And then you think about music and you think about my website when I in 1996, right? And you think about, okay, tour, blog, merch, some pictures, some links. And then you fast forward all those same decades and go to Taylor Swift's website. It's the same thing. It's the same times. And better yet, we're selling uh, vinyl from 1950s. Like it's still even the same product. Like and that same time period where like gaming like just unleashed and became next level. The same that same time frame. The music companies were essentially suing the tech companies. You're trying to like inhibit the growth, and like it was a battle, right? So here we are, right? And like Stationhead is like it's in a class of its own. It's a place where fans trust and be together. And the artists also have that same trust and authenticity with these super fans, and all the things I learned on the road of when you talked about the kids with the tattoos in my lyrics, right? Like these are those kids. These are those kids digitally, right? And they're here, and instead of watching a Twitch stream, our fire pit is the music. And Halsey last week tweeted, "Stationhead is genius." And she said it because, she's kind of known now for someone really rejecting, an artist rejecting, like, I gotta go on TikTok and, s you know, be a travel agent and tell people where I'm vacationing, and I have to go to Instagram and take pictures of my French toast, like, this is what I am as an art like, for you to put my music out, that's what I have to do now. So, the artists find this and they know it's about the music. My best fans are listening to my music right now. Cool. Let me go hang out with them. Let me go say, hey, and you've been in enough after shows and merch booths, where the artist is talking to those fans that stayed, outside the bus. Those fans with the tattoos, they're talking to them differently. They're talking to them. They're still the rock star, but they're not on stage at the Garden now. Now they're talking to their best fans that they know no matter what are going to be there with them and for them through all the ups and downs, wherever they end up. Those are their fans, and they talk to them differently. And that's the relationship. That's what we've built at Stationhead and growing. And that's like kind of the mission there. So it's been a thrill. And we're a band in the van, drive through the night still, man. You call me a suit, F you, but at the same time, it's just not true, right? We're the rebels coming in to do shit that no one's done before, in rebellion to the suit you talk about, because someone's got to build it for this generation to like make music, like, bring them all together, bring the fans together. And it's more than just numbers. It's like, it's a community. it's music. It's cool. So anyway, yeah, we're building it. We're like I said, driving through the night, the ups and downs. If you've ever seen any of those startup movies, like that's it. Silicon Valley, HBO show, like that's where we're living. It's quite incredible and thrilling. And I feel really grateful that I have been able to live this experience because the other route was I just knew music and I just knew Raking Records. And we've talked about that life too. And I really feel kind of grateful. This all stemmed from like a time when you know, lost my 4th major record deal. It, like, ended again the same way, a regime change, and, like, I wasn't Taylor Swift, right? But I was making a living, making music, and I had hits, and it was just, like, again, and I just needed a break, and I owned my master's for the first time in my life since I was a kid, and I was like, where is this all headed? Like, where's the relation? Where are my fans? Like, who are they? Where are they? And that's really how this evolved, started to build. And I got really passionate about building this. And that's what's cooking at Stationhead. So yeah.
That's so cool. What a great idea. I didn't realize you were that smart, Ryan. So God bless you. Dude, nice job with that.
It's more lucky and being aware. It's like a sculpture, like making something, and then you're all of a sudden it starts revealing itself to you what it really is, right? Like it's coming. You start looking at it because you're on the front line and you have a lot of experiences. So if you're acute, if you're like awake to the things happening, you get lucky. Yeah.
And and let's wrap this up and talk about the economy of music. You kind of mentioned there that being dropped by record labels and um, the music industry has changed. And for people who are not aware of this, I think a lot of people are. Most artists do not make money with music anymore. It's now touring, merch, all the other stuff that used to be like the add-ons to artists. Now because these deals, a lot of us consume our music by Spotify. And I remember there was this great interview where Snoop Dogg was talking about like royalties on music. And I think he was talking like about Drop It Like It's Hot, one of his huge songs. He goes, I called up my accountant one day and I said, hey, how much money did we make from Drop It Like It's Hot last year? And the accountant looks up and he goes, it's like $8,000. And he's like, what? And so I bring this up saying like, the idea of making money in this world and the fact that I live in Charles, South Carolina, and Everclear comes touring here every year. I saw them this past summer. I mean, the guys, I think our Alexis is like 60 years old. He's probably going to tour until he's dead.
Yeah.
Because that's
Love those guys. Love those guys.
loves the music, but that's the way that's why he makes a living. So talk to me about the current state of the music economy.
Well, at macro level, the current state is that streaming is in its maturity now. It did what it said it would do, and it really saved the music industry, right? Like we were in a free fall. Music was not worth nothing to anybody. It was devalued completely and pirated. And then streaming came along, and I know it's a little demonized now because you have a generation that's coming up not realizing, yeah, they're saying this is bad economics, but they're also not realizing where it came from, which was it was free. No one valued it, right? Um, so is brilliant, Spotify and Daniel and his brilliance and also his tenacity to like build this for an industry that was trying to take him down essentially in the beginning. I mean, it's like crazy, and so he did great, and they so now years later, it's making money, like it's doing it. Everyone's paying for music, for the most part, right? It's beautiful, and now you look and you say, well, okay, cool. That's not in a free fall. That's at a stable place. We could get better deals. We could get more favorable to artists. There's ideas around artist centric things. Like I listen to only Justin Bieber. Why is this like nature sounds getting that money that I'm, for my money, if I'm, so there's ways to now, I think at scale, you could start saying, okay, how can we do this better? And we're actually working on really innovative things there from my end. But when you look past streaming, you look at commerce, and like the idea that's always been the thing, right? I appreciate that Snoop thing, but he's like half, missing it because like I'm sure the label's making that money, like he might have his deal, so that deal worked out that way. But traditionally, right, when you got that big marketing push and that big machine behind you, you kind of handed over your recordings to them. And on the other side, you're going to be famous and you're going to be able to go make money on the road and being famous and make movies and sell merchandise and stuff like that. So all of that's like kind of alive and well and getting really exciting because there's ways now to you're hitting on exactly where I'm thinking and where I'm headed with Stationhead because you have this really healthy touring thing, and those guys have to be on the road because that's where it is. Again, no one built that world online. You might think they did. Well, we have Amazon, and I could buy a T-shirt anywhere. Yeah, how often are you buying band shirts on Amazon? But when you go to that concert, you definitely buying that shirt. You're waiting on a line of something you could have got somewhere. So again, proof no one built it with that experience in mind, that excitement, right? So where it's headed is, yeah, I think we have to think about what has worked traditionally with a very nuanced audience and market, the artists and the fans, and understand them in such a deep level that you can now evolve that into this digital world, and not take away anything from physical, but like really start building it the right way. Because those artists are right. They will have to be on the road till they're 90 to do what they do, unless somebody comes and starts building that world for them, in the digital world. And that's again what we're doing. So a lot of promise around that because there's never been more excitement around music and more fandoms. And you have these armies and like, this is exciting. This is like, as cool as it was to be a Deadhead or a Fish fan or, a Swiftie or Pearl Jam 10 Club, like we're being able to create that for every artist now. And that's kind of a big lifelong project. That's when you're passing down your Jets jersey to your grandkids, you're passing down your Swiftie one of a kind thing. Like that's what we're creating. That's the excitement for the music business coming up. And a lot of work has to be done to get it.
Awesome. His name is Ryan Starr. He is a rock star / CEO. Ryan, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. I'm late to a Zoom. I got to go.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Good Listen. Thanks so much for taking the time and watching on YouTube or listening on Apple or Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. That'd be awesome. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, it would be awesome if you could give a 5-star review. If you want to connect with me, find out more about what I'm doing, go to joepardavila.com. But until next time, adios.